what should first-time home buyers be aware of when we're trying to get a deal? What else?
So I think we're going to go over a couple options here. As far as analyzing your first deal, it also depends on what your goals are. We're going to be kind of looking at a small multifamily property, a couple duplexes. If you talk to a lot of investors out there, in any type of market, honestly, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I mean, this one works in any type of market as far as like you find a duplex, you live in one unit and you rent out the other. It's called the house hack. I mean, that's probably the best way to start building wealth, the simplest way. One of the nice things about that is the fact that you don't have to put a lot of money down, because usually a lot of people's barrier, their obstacle to getting started is, hey, I don't have a lot of money. I got to put 20% down, right? Well, that's not the case all the time. So like if you find a duplex, you could put 5% down, 3% down. I mean, I've even heard of some lenders doing 0%. That's just a conversation, though, that you got to have with a lender. But we're going to take a look at a couple here.
When you talk about 5%, I know the FHA is 3.5%, right?
Yeah, FHA is 3.5%. You're going to have private mortgage insurance on that one. So like you put less than 20% down. They kind of want to use that to back, because the banks want to take on the least amount of risk as possible. So you're going to have private mortgage insurance. Sometimes, I mean, it varies by bank. It's going to be a certain percentage of the amount you borrowed to. There are some banks and credit unions, they do something called an in-house loan as well. You're able to get a little bit more creative. And I actually talked to a lender this week that was working at a bank, and he's like, yeah, we do in-house stuff as well. So they don't sell these mortgages on the secondary market to like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. That's a whole other conversation. They're able to get a little more creative, and sometimes I've had this experience, though. Like personally, I was talking to a lender, and I was able to get pre-approved for 5% down, but like no private mortgage insurance. So, I mean, that saves you a lot in the fact that, in your cash flow, because that could be $75, $100. So like on a deal, when you're looking at a duplex, that's a pretty important amount of cash flow every month.
Okay, let's take it back for a second, because I think you made emphasis in a lot of things that people are not. Even I could get confused at a time. So what do you mean when you talk about house hacking?
Yeah, so house hacking is not only, you don't have to have a duplex. Say you buy a home. You just see a home on the market, 3 beds, 1 bath, and you have a couple buddies. Let's say in your case, you want to buy a house, you have a couple buddies. You don't want to rent's high, and you want to cut down on your expenses. So what you could do is you could buy this house with 5% down, let's say, 5% down, for example, and then you could have your 2 friends move in with you, and they can live in 1 bedroom, you live in 1 bedroom, and then that third person either lives in the other bedroom, and then you could charge rent for that, and then that'll offset your mortgage. So, or you could do a duplex, so 2 units, 3 units, or 4 units are all considered small multifamily, and that's on the residential side. So you'll get a lot more favorable terms, and you can live in one side of the duplex, and then on the other side, you have a tenant in there, and they're going to help pay down your mortgage and lower your expense. And if you want to get extreme into it, you could do like a duplex, live in one side, and have a friend or 2, depending on how many beds you have. So let's say it's a 3-bed. You can have you and 2 friends in one side, and then a tenant on the other. And at that point, you're probably living for free.
That seems to be the best way to start when you have no capital, right?
Yeah, when you have no capital, that's probably one of the best ways and the most proven ways to get started.
Okay, you also talk about Freddie Mac and Fannie Mac. Could you elaborate a little more on that? So I have a basic understanding, but I'm sure if somebody just want to get a quick knowledge of what it is.
I think if we're talking about just getting started, we don't really need to go into Freddie and Fannie Mac, because I'd say for just the first-time buyers, that what you need to know is to have a good lender, an investor-friendly lender, somebody who's familiar and works a lot with investment properties, because that'll be a huge difference. Just like if you're getting an agent, you're going to want somebody who has experience.
Okay, so follow-up question. How do you get a good lender? How do you get a
Yeah, so getting a good lender and a good agent, I mean, the power of the internet. I mean, you can go to Google, you can go to these meetups, which by the way is a great way to meet good lenders and good agents. You can Google them online. You can set up a time to talk to them and just ask these questions like, hey, do you own property yourself? And if they do, that's a positive. Do you work a lot with investors? That's a positive. So, I mean, it's pretty easy to find a good lender. I mean, it's just almost like, I mean, you can almost think of it like you're interviewing lenders and whatnot, you know, just qualifying them like, hey, do they work with investors? I mean, Google it. You can network. There's a ton of ways.